Welcome to our session on Qualtrics. Dr. Lando Carter and Dr. Kevin Crampiel are going to be presenting this session to us. Much awaited, so thank you for providing this opportunity, and I'm just going to let you guys roll with it.
Well, Dr. K and I are very grateful to be here and grateful for Dr. Calkin to putting this Lunch and Learn series together. I know it's been a lot of work, so we're glad to be here and want to give you a great crash course in Qualtrics today. So we have an outline here for you, and we'll get into a little more detail about that, but we'd also like to have you take a little survey to give you a little bit of practice. So you've got a QR code option.
If you take out your phone and just take your camera, the camera should pick that up, or if you got a QR reader, you can do that, or you can also type in that little tiny URL that we put up there. So we checked both those this morning. They should still be working. But that'll grab that, go check it out, and then one of the features that we'll pitch about Qualtrics, it's automatically optimized for cell phone usage and things.
So it really automatically makes it look great on a phone. That's one thing we do like about this particular software.
It worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
There you go.
Not too far.
What's the?
tinyurl.com, you want to type it that way, you're going to grab the photo.
I'm going to grab the photo.
There we go. So if you zoom in and grab it, it might grab that there. So again, later on, when we kind of get towards the end, we'll show you can get a bunch of different distributions. One of them QR code, you can get anonymous links. That link we added with a tiny URL, but nonetheless, short, quick survey. Just check in while you're here, and then we can show some immediate results from that, which will not be massively robust. But nonetheless, we'll have some.
So we're excited to be here, and also the students are pumped about Qualtrics. If you take a look, we've got the proof, right? But hey, at least we're excited, right? So you can see that people are using this, they're having their students use it. One thing we want to take a look at today is how we can use this in various ways. You can send out a couple reports that are very, very simple, right? Or it can get sophisticated depending on what you need. It's a scalable software, right? So it's a simple question. How prepared do you feel for the ACT reading test? Well, it gives you a great breakdown there. I mean, if I've got 40% of people, juniors, who feel very unprepared, okay, I need to do something, right? So it could be very simple like that. Or it could also take that same quant question, and when you add a qual piece, it'll give you this word cloud. And some of the areas back here you can't quite see because of the shading, but the keywords are standing out there to you. And of course, for my research on the reading test, it's really time is their most prevalent concern. I got that immediately by clicking one button. I love that about Qualtrics. But you can also get into the granular mode here and look at some very, very detailed data. And we're going to show you some more examples later. But this is sort of a preview of what you can get through Qualtrics. You can see all kinds of different data sets, displays. It can do it all.
If you just kind of backtrack through these real quickly too, if you pay attention again, later on I'll kind of show these, but this is the same data set, so I'm just going to use a couple of samples of a data of a fairly, not large at this point, but fairly larger study that I've worked on a little bit. But taking the different things, just with a click of a button, you can change the manipulation, quit different visuals. So visual display is very easy to utilize, manipulate, and kind of pick which one I want to use for this purpose. Again, extremely simple in the system. So one of the reasons
you'll see some more details on that as Dr. K takes you through some of his own projects he's built just in a few minutes. So you can see all kinds of options there. So for today, let's take a look at our goals. We want to try to give a kind of an overview of what does this do that the other ones do, but maybe Qualtrics does something else. So all these programs are great. I've got a little background in each of them, but I like Qualtrics a lot. Not that it's better than another, but it has a different purpose. And once you find what your purpose of your project is, you go to one of these areas. So for Qualtrics, we've got it paid for. We've got the license. We've got access for our graduate students. We had graduate students, for example, never have used it. We're up and running in what, a half hour? About a half hour, creating their own surveys, creating their own instruments. And so it's very user-friendly, just like these other ones. So what you want to do after you see this and go through the workshop is see the connector points or the sort of different features that you now can add on. We think that Qualtrics has just a little bit more sophistication to it, a little bit more malleability on how you can build different types of questions. But these other ones are great too. So now you've got another skill set that you can add. Okay?
So is Qualtrics purchased by the university?
To my knowledge, it's university-wide. Now any faculty member has access to it according to a conversation with Stephen James. So I'm going to show you where you can go log in If you've never logged in, we'll show you where that is, and if you have logged in, we'll show you a bunch of apps that we do have, one of which is Qualtrics.
So it's very user-friendly. You can get it with great speed, but it also really looks great on a tablet, on a phone, on a computer automatically. Okay? And it's just got a professional look to it that we also like. So we're going to take a look at those, but you're also getting a lot of time to play. So Dr. K is going to take you through some step-by-steps, show you and let you play, show you and let you play. Also going to look for research uses or just maybe some general classroom uses. We can have this as a formative data collection exercise in class, or you could build an actual qualitative study around it, depending on what your needs are. I want to show you both.
And we didn't put it on here, but judging from the audience, program evaluation tools. I know Frank Lambert talked to me about using this for accreditation purposes, and I know that's not necessarily the aim here, because maybe that has to be up through different software, but nonetheless, it's really user-friendly that you could leverage for a quick program evaluation, feedback, students along those lines. So it could also be used.
So we also have an option to export directly to SPSS or Excel, depending on what you use. What do you like to use, right? Well, I'll go with SPSS. All you got to do is click a button. It'll give you the file, okay? But we've also got a chance to build a prototype, play in that sandbox that Dr. Khan had mentioned, okay? So there's our big ideas for today. And now we're going to let you play a little bit.
So if you've not already, get a computer out, and I'm going to walk you through how you go about getting on there. So if you have never got access to Qualtrics at all, where you're going to go is myapps.microsoft.com. And so if you type that in, myapps.microsoft.com, if you're already in there, you can, but you can check this out anyway. It's kind of neat. This will show all the different apps that we have. Now, this one, if I recall, you have to sign in with apparently what's called the old school username, which is like, for me, it's K. Cranbiel, long last name, at mtsu.edu. So it's not actually your regular email address. It's the, again, old one is the way that Stephen described it for me. Since I haven't been around as long, I didn't know that was the old one. But let me see if I can get my password here right. No, thank you. And so this little link, what's kind of neat about, these are all apps that are purchased university-wide. All faculty have access to them right away. And so once you log in here, these things you don't need. If you have Wi-Fi anywhere, you're on a device and it doesn't have whatever, any of these things, Word, you can get it on your program and use it right away. So a bunch of those, obviously one of them, the one we're talking about today, is Qualtrics. So it's kind of a neat feature. If you weren't aware, this is here, but lynda.com. Word, as I said, PowerPoint, Excel, kind of your standard things. Some of these other features that maybe OneNote, I know some people use. But Qualtrics is right there, and if you've never registered, this is pretty much how you go about doing it. You click it here, and it's going to sync with your account. So that's pretty good. I'm already in, so I'm going to switch over here, but so then you should be good to go. Again, I'm not going to do that because I already have it open over here. But so that's our first kind of step, just kind of how you go about doing it. So if you wanted to share with others how they go about actually activating their account, this is it. Once you log into My Apps, MTSU, you click it, boom, you pretty much are in the game. So with that then, we're going to take a little, not necessarily a pause, but I'm going to start doing is just kind of walking through navigating it. And it's going to follow a sequence of show, do, show, do. So I'll spend 3-4 minutes or so kind of showing something, turn it over and let you guys play with it and ask some questions as you go about there. These are just some kind of active surveys I've got going on here, which we'll share a little bit in a minute here. This is the one you guys just did a moment ago, so you can see our trend is really climbing. Awesome. What a shocker. So, but anyway, as we kind of run throughout, this is just our opening page here. If you wanted to create a project, so on the front screen, yours probably looks different than mine because you don't have these active projects. But you'll see somewhere that should say create projects. It should be a create blank project, depending on what you're looking at. You see the different screens. Rick, you're in that one there. She's got the newer version, so you can do a blank survey project if you want. That's a nice place to start. So you click there, check out that blank survey project. Yep, so there's some templates that you could choose if you want to try those out. To be fair, I've not really used those. I kind of go to my comfort zone, which is I'm going to create it from scratch the way I want it, but they've got different ones designed for different functions. I'm not a marketing person, but obviously they've got ones that are tailored for branding, employee experience. You could draw from those templates if you were inclined. I'm just going to kind of roll right here from this blank survey project form. And so when you check that out, it's going to help you to make a name, so you can just make it whatever you want. And if I'll encourage you today, if you don't have an idea in mind at all, just make one, playground, sandbox, whatever you want to call it, just to have as a saved item there, where all you do is you just go on, if you have some free time, just go play, and you don't care about screwing it up because it's just a playground, that's it. So anyway, I'll throw one of those in here just to create it and pop it up. So extremely easy to create that. And everyone here, have you all had a chance to go through and create this little blank survey project? Everyone's in, no issues with that? Looks like everyone's already done that before, so that's good. So now I'll move kind of step 2 here. Let's look at the different question types, choices, manipulation. So again, one of the things that I particularly like about of Qualtrics is there are a ton of question types. And now I've not necessarily even used all of these ones, but if you go check them out, they're pretty easy to kind of standard to see what you are going to do. You click it over here and it's going to kind of give a quick sample. So as soon as you hover over one, it'll pop up an example what it looks like. So you have a quick, immediate, what is that? Multiple choice is pretty straightforward, but if you get these other ones like what's a hotspot one, it's kind of interesting here. So you could have images and say, click on which ones actually are you like, which ones you don't like. So again, from a marketing perspective, that makes more sense.
So I'm going to pause you just for a minute because I lost you on how to get to my choices there.
Sure. So on your blank page, and see if Lando's there, he can walk you through it there. You create your blank project. You have to create a new one and then give it a title. And once you've done that, you should come up with this blank screen up front here. Good. You in?
Multiple choice.
Yeah, that's what you'll click. Perfect. So this is kind of our icon, which is your question type. And once you create them, they'll just automatically create in here, and then you want to add more. I'll show that in a little bit here, but I was just going to run through these different question types, highlight a few of them. So,
And you can see on Google Docs, I mean, they've got a lot of question types, but this has a lot of question types. So it's just more malleable in some ways.
So again, there's just some standard things. So if you want to just put information that's just kind of like an introduction to your survey, here's your descriptive text. A graphic, if you want some big picture at the front screen there. So those are not even questions per se, it's just kind of entry, static content. Here's your questions again, your standard ones. Multiple choice is exactly what you'd expect. Text entry if you want your open-ended response items. Rank order, so I've done this quite a bit. I'll share some of the examples of that a little bit later on. Kind of interesting to see how people prioritize something. And so when we think of what teachers are charged to do any given day, there's a lot of different priorities, and so I'm curious where people stand. What is your priority? Is it about this particular skill, knowledge thing?
And you could also embed in your descriptive text or even in an image your consent form. And then that's what the first thing they see, and then if they want to consent to take, they can go further, right? So you can actually embed that at the very beginning if you choose to do a research study with this.
We'll show you that in a little bit here, how that works, because it's just a simple click of a button again. So again, a bunch of these different things. We'll give you a chance to kind of play with these in a moment, but as you run through, I'm trying to see if there's any other ones that are interesting. Any ones that jump out you guys are kind of questioning?
Captcha verification, is that?
It's just like what you'd see on a lot of websites where they'll force you to type in a code to prove you're not a robot. And so if you wanted to add a different protection in to say that I'm going to send this out, it's going to be on my page, but I don't want bots going around and skewing my data, you can actually force to do that.
I mean, is that something
I've not used it per se, but if you get it, it's just it's all there is that captcha check, that box there for it. And so I would say if you were looking at doing some sort of thing where you're just going to blanket share this out and blindly, that might be a good thing to add. But by and large, most what we do research-wise, and that's why I'm kind of using this primarily for, is not going to fill in that parameters. And so I wouldn't add it in. But again, depending on what I was going to do, if I was going to put this on my web page and just wanted people to fill out some survey and just make it embedded there, somehow a link for it, I might have that, so I didn't get a bunch of garbage data, or just someone that wants to have their bot go tweet at me a bunch of times and gives different answers the same thing. So different things with that. You can include a little signature icon where you can have them sign it. So again, there's all sorts of these really kind of unique question items and types that are available to you. And the one thing I wanted to kind of show you with is some of these manipulations that are available with them. So I'll just kind of pick a couple of standard ones. So let's throw in a multiple choice one. We won't need to make a question per se here, but once you pick the one you want, underneath it, it populates with this list of kind of sub items. And this scroll is wanting to scroll hard. And so all these kind of sub choices come up, and depending upon which one you pick, these obviously change. But if you want to have more choices, it's obviously pretty straightforward. It's just plus, minus, that's it. Very easy. And then you've got down here single answer, multiple answer if you want to allow them to click multiple things. So that's an option that you can add in if you want to. I've not actually done that. Lando, have you done any of that at all?
No.
Okay, so typically I haven't when I've done it, but that would be certainly something you could do that. You could change the formatting for them, whether you want them to appear vertically, horizontally. So some different items. this validation response, if there's a question that they have to answer before they can move on, you can force a response. They can't skip over it if it's a really important one. So again, you could utilize that. I've utilized that when it's an informed consent. So on my question number 1, typically when I've done this on IRB approved studies, question number 1 will have my informed consent, copy and pasted. That's the question. I agree is yes. I disagree is no. They can't skip it. Ban it, because then right away IRB can be content. It's past their screening every time. That's a sufficient way to do that. Using that as an example, so let's pretend I was going to force a response on this one. Down here, actions, in order to make this something that would be appropriate for that IRB thing there. If there is a yes-no thing and they're going to have a contingent clause, skip logic is the icon you'd lose below that. And so if you've never, you've seen these in softwares, if you've done survey stuff, that's obviously available. But add skip logic, you just add to that bottom of that screen here. And so let's just say, we'll write this out here. So this will be the worst informed consent of all time. Oh, come on.
It's going slower than you.
Yes, it is. And I was getting impatient, which is always a wonderful thing. So let's edit. Now, typically you can check right on those little boxes. Mine was not allowing that, and I'm not sure whether that's because the Wi-Fi is slow or not. But typically over here, where that yes/no is, I can just click on that and edit right from there. We go, right from there. And so a minute ago, I had to edit multiple. So there's 2 different functions for how to do that. Again, depending on how.
How do you get the automatic yes, no?
Excuse my step here. What's that you want to have?
How did you get the automatic yes, no?
I changed that in there, and so I typed it in.
Oh, okay.
And so actually, I just typed it in. There are some stock options you can pick from. I don't use those typically, but that would be one of them might be in there. So, yep, just type them in, and you have it there. And then again, when you have your skip logic, so I've added the skip logic. Let's say this is our informed consent form. You just go down to your options and edit it. And basically, you set up if-then conditions. So if yes is selected, move to question 2. I don't have a question 2, so it's not going to work here. If no is selected, move to end of survey. And so then immediately right up front there, anyone taking your survey is refuses consent is done. You didn't waste their time. There's no data, and so IRB is going to be content with you because you're going to be respecting their rights for that. So it's a nice way that you can build into that if you're doing a purely electronic sort of survey, some parameters for how to deal with those who are maybe unwilling to participate for many good reasons, so, or any reason for that matter, whether it's good or not.
So it's skip logic.
Skip logic, correct. And there, you'll notice there's actually another logic there, which I'll show in a minute here, which is, maybe I'll show right now, I guess, since we're kind of running through it. We got a small crew. Add display logic. And so on this one, I'm going to go back to my sandbox, and I'll show you how I've used this in one particular. In fact, in anyone that took our survey up at the beginning here, did anyone pick the last option that says none of these list items? If you did that, I used display logic, so it forced you to have a follow-up question, which said, open-ended, why'd you come? And so I missed your answer, and so you gave me that reason. So I filled that out, and so I'll show you that in a minute here. So let's jump back to that one real quick. We'll come back to my sandbox in a moment. But since that came up, we're talking about these different kind of manipulations of the different items. On our survey playground, we go out here. We can skip that one. You can see on this one, I did this, here's my display logic. And so instead of the skip logic, this display logic is tied to this one, where if this one is selected, then this question comes up. Briefly describe your reason for coming here today. No one saw that except me, because I made sure we got one answer that was filled in that way. Did you do it maybe? No, there you go. See, you followed the rules. Good man. So anyway, we've got one in response there, but you can build those things in as well. So if you have that kind of opt-out answer where you're kind of like, I don't want to give this in here, but you want to have that filler information, you can provide that. Or if you think of simple things like demographics, where it's always like, well, am I leaving out which group or something? I'm calling this other. Is that, you could add something like this. Would you like to identify, self-identify, what that might be? You can embed that very easily. So,
Kevin, I have 2 questions.
sure, fire away, Zach.
One is can Qualtrics be embedded on a web page where it could sit on a web page where people can take it using a URL? And question number 2, you talk about logic. If can Qualtrics also, if someone selects something in a set of questions, it would give them some formative feedback instantly. Something will pop up. If they select something, it should like just pop up, hey, and it tells them, blah,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah.
So 2 responses. The first one, I'm not certain. However, I think the answer is no. What I think is, so it's to question number 1, which was, can I take this and basically embed it on a separate page? The answer is you can definitely have a link.
Put it on your own website.
Yeah.
Take the Qualtrics and embed it on your own. For example, I have my own website,
Yeah.
and I want them to be able to go to there rather than sending them a document.
Yep.
And
Yes. You can embed it onto Twitter, D2L, email, anything you want.
But you can embed the link, not the survey. And I think what you were asking about was the survey, correct? Yeah. So
It needs to appear exactly like the
So I think and this is not, I will defer that I may be wrong on this, but to my knowledge, what you'll embed would be the actual text for the link for that, and that would take them to the Qualtrics shell. There may be a way to do that. I'm not aware of it. So have you done that where you actually try to embed it on like your own personal web
I've
page?
always just had the link, and you go right to that real clean Qualtrics look.
So the second question was, and repeat it because I think I knew what my answer was earlier.
It's the responsive intelligent design.
Cool. Yeah, so within there, the answer is yes. And again, that display logic, so I'll show that. Let's just do that right now. So let's change this first one. So I've done this display logic to design for this one in particular, but let's pretend I want to add a new one. So yep, I'm going to go ahead and unlock it.
And with those kind of unique features, you could even build a test for students like this, where they choose something, then it follows up. Kind of neat like that. So it's not just pure surveys.
Like, oops, good try, but have you thought about this?
Yep.
Maybe, it's sort of formative.
So quick response, just a note here, since we're kind of doing this on the fly, we'll kind of react. We respond to a question in this case here. This is the survey I just did with all of you, so it's a live survey. So I'm trying to edit it, and it's immediately telling me. So again, it's nice, another thing that's built into it there, where if I'm going to edit it, it pops up right away. Are you sure you want to do this? Because you have a live survey out there that you're collecting data from. You could be manipulating your results. I'm okay with invalidating these results because my survey was just to kind of showcase that simple thing and get started. But obviously in a research study, we want to be more careful about that. So if I go to this display logic when I want to edit this, it comes up with this, which is just the if-then sequence. And so I can identify what question I'm looking at. That's the question I'm on because I picked it by default. And so here it is. Here's which of these reasons are why you came today. And I select whatever I want to do. So let's say you said you want to say this and is selected. Then we can put plus. So if you want to add extra layers, then we push save. Here's our display logic. And then, oh dear, my scroller really wants to scroll down. It comes up with this new bar. So you'll notice I've just changed that bar that was originally, if this one is selected, here's your answer. If this one's selected now, here's what it is. And so instead of doing this item right here, I can just put in a different text entry that says, in fact, by the way, I wouldn't do a text entry. What you just talked about, Zaf, was basically formative feedback, right? So I would change this to descriptive text. So maybe we put something like, are you leading the session today?
So it's actually linked to the choice above it. So it's
Exactly.
So they work together in tandem.
Yep.
So if you select something else, that's not going to pop up. It
That's
only
exactly right.
pops up
And
on
so-
triggering that event.
Yep. And so for example, right now, if we pulled that QR code back up and you went in there and you select that one, that will come up, which will say, are you leading the session today? Which of course is kind of silly because you could be doing some professional development, which would be perfectly fine for your OF day too, but just throwing it out there as a kind of a sample. So yes, you could do that. The display logic just basically means if this certain option is chosen, it's going to follow up with a subsequent question, and that means you can pick any of these things again. And so you could pick anything to follow up with. It could be a picture, it could be a text feedback right away, it could be a follow-up question. So again, this is interesting here because I think of opportunities where, a lot of the, if you think of online testing programs, Khan Academy, whatever we want to have there. But if you looked at different things you've got set in place and you want to have subsequent questions, if I pick this one, it indicates this type of misconception. So I want display the next question to be this misconception. Let's look at it again, and maybe on an easier level because they missed it here. So you can kind of think of a way of scalable your progressions. So you could leverage it that way. But a couple of items with that.
And then you can get really sophisticated where then once you get it, quote, right, I guess, it can redirect you back into the sequence that it was supposed to be in.
And then follow up my first question, if I'm going into a school to observe some teacher candidates, can I pull up Qualtrics and I'm doing an observation for maybe R1?
Yeah.
And I have my radio buttons
Yeah.
to help me, and then instantly on my iPad I can assess them.
Absolutely.
And then boom, send them that information via type in the email, so it pops up as an app on iPad as well.
Definitely. And again, one of the things that I like about this one is it's immediately optimized for functioning on those devices. So you could just, with the QR code, if you took that, or if you just knew the link, obviously, you just type that into your iPad and it'll come up on the survey. And so you'll fill it out just like you did on your phone a minute ago, right? I think that's I hadn't even thought about that. That's a really good idea for a quickly collection of that team evaluation rubric or something like that, where it's immediate, boom. And at the end, again, we'll show this report that comes out, which again would be one-on-one there, but they would have that summary of all those results right away.
And notice what you could do for your own evaluation, right? You could build the system for what you're looking for. So use your skip logic. If you didn't see something from a candidate, it prompts you to go where you need to go regarding evaluation. You could say, well, I didn't see higher order questioning. Then it says, what should we do for this candidate regarding higher order question? It prompts you to stay on task as well. And it's going to be instant right there on your phone, your tablet, whatever you're using.
And you asked, I think, that after completing that, you could send the results
Of what they did.
of what they did.
I'm trying to use it as an assessment tool.
Right.
For them to get instant feedback, which I think this has potential to do. This is seen as a survey instrument more so, but I'm trying to tweak it to
But would you
make
have to set up a separate one for every single student?
The answer is no. What you would do is so you have this anonymous link, and every time you log into it, you can just take the survey as an independent one. You can actually check it so it's tied to IP address, so I can only take the survey once, but that's a opt-in thing. And so in the case of ZAF student, I wouldn't check that box. I'd just take the same survey 100 times myself.
with different
But
students.
we don't want his student to get other students' results.
But then you share it with that student only.
only.
And so it'd be administered in that way.
And you should be able to choose individual responses or a collective aggregate.
And when we get to the reports one,
Dispositions.
yeah. When we get to reports, Zaf, remind me, and I'll see if I can pull up a breakdown of by individual, because it automatically does populate by aggregate data, which is what Nancy's kind of highlighting there. And I'm pretty confident that you can just break it down by individual, but right off the top of my head, I'm not seeing where, so remind me, and we'll see if we can pull that up right away, because again, I think the answer is yes, that's easy to do. So couple of good thoughts. So this was kind of just a quick intro. Here's these different question types and some of the manipulations you can do with it. There's obviously a few more there. Page breaks, I didn't talk about that, but you can all imagine what a page break is if you want to have them separated rather than one long survey. Moving questions. I didn't show creating new ones real quickly how that goes, so let's do that. And then what I'd like to do is turn it over a little bit of playtime. So creating a new question, pretty easy. This is it. Plus, if I want to add one below, plus if I want to add one above, minus if I want to delete it. So you see these little icons hover. They don't appear unless you're on the question. And so whatever question you're on, this is a nice way where you can add the questions into the survey where you want them, as opposed to always doing them and manipulating. If you want to change the order at the end, you can, because they've got this move question ones. I think you could actually drag and drop them. So pushing these arrows. So those will move them as well. And I've just probably screwed up my survey by clicking it because this thing is very hypersensitive. But again, there's a quick little run through, and what we wanted to do now is turn it over to you and give maybe 10 minutes. So think about something that you could maybe make use of in your context, whatever that might be, and start to come up with maybe 4 sample questions, trying some different types. So take this as playground time. Like 10 minutes, what do you think, Lando? So take about 10 minutes and just kind of go through and try to create 4 different types of questions, playing with that. That might be useful for you, and grab us with questions, bounce ideas off one another, but just some playtime, and we'll move to the next stage in a minute. This one, just because I've got some responses in it here. You'll have to ignore the topic if you're not a philosophy person. I'm a weirdo. I like that stuff. So one thing that I was talking with Zaf about, which I'll share here on look and feel, one of the things that I think is useful if you're doing this here for it, there's this progress bar. When you're taking a survey and you have no clue, no sense of how many questions they are, and not so helpful. So I would change that to use the progress bar, and if you actually click it, it shows you the different things it does here. So I'll show that. Early on, I wouldn't do this, and here's why. If I do preview, it's kind of nice to see the question numbers, because I know which one I want to go back and edit right away, whereas if I see the progress bar, it's not really worried about the numbers, right? And so it's more, that's friendly for the takers, not so much for the designers. So that progress bar, I'd kind of do it towards the end here, but if you click on it, it just shows, here's what it looks like. With text, it just shows the 0%, 100%, that's it. Without text, it just shows this bar, and it will fill in as they complete different items on the survey. And then here it just kind of says survey completion, so they can see this is the bar that shows your survey completion. And again, it just fills up as they go so that your participants have a sense of what kind of progress they're making. So there's just kind of a quick little thing, and look and feel is where you can edit some other features. I mentioned that one, but it's just got those are some general things. You can change the font to different types there if there's a certain one you really want to make a look at. So again, gives you some customization. I have not played with that a great deal except for this progress bar, but it's available to you if you want to manipulate those. They've also got themes you can select here, which again, haven't really played with, but it's available. Survey flow, I've really not used a whole lot. Have you ever used it? Did you ever use Lando or no?
I tried it, and then I really ended up messing up my survey.
There we go.
So
neither of us are going to give a big overview from that, but there's a way in which you can kind of use it to make the things flow better from there. Survey options just gives you a bunch of different things you can check and access from here, if they're going to allow people to save and continue, or if that's going to be forbidden from that. Do you want to show the question numbers? Again, here actually they tell you right here for previews, great for this. For participants, they'd rather use that progress bar, so at least they agree with me there. It means they must be right, right? Survey title, so if you want to change your title, you could type it in there. If you already gave it a project title, so it's tied to it, but if you decide you want to change it, you could do there. So again, just a variety of options that are available there. Termination, if you want to set some sort of response that happens at the end here. You can set up messages custom for inactive surveys that you can send out. They'll be tied to your library, which I've, again, not really utilized any of these. You can see from this, but a variety of items from that. So you can set up some automatic options that are just kind of automated depending on how your distribution goes. So there's some survey options in the tools. Here's our import-export survey, but that's different here. So if you wanted to import or export the survey itself to Word, you could do that. If you want to do a hard copy, I'm not sure why you would. That seems to me that would take away the whole benefit of using this, but whatever. If you wanted to, that's available. Again, another one of these categories. I've not used a great deal of ton of this stuff here. And the Collaborate, I haven't either, but when we have these accounts, you can do Collaborate and share it with other members in the library. And so I could take my thing and share it with Nancy right away with the Collaborate, and you can then have access to that. And so there's some built-in networking where you can, instead of having to say, well, I've got this and you got to click on my computer for it, you can collaborate it link it that way. So
I wonder if it's live, like Google Docs, where you can tell someone else is on.
That I don't know. Maybe we can share one in a minute here. We can play with that when we have some more playtime towards the end. So again, some of these features that are here, but what I want to get with here, okay.
So this Collaborate, this is something where a student could be working on a project and they could collaborate with us, and that way we wouldn't have to.
Yep. You could share it, and so you could see the function right there. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so up here, that's just these different tabs here for kind of, just general options for the survey overall. Actions, distributions. So up top, your distributions is obviously if you want to actually create a distribution, here is where you're going to choose what options you want to have. So the option is anonymous link, and so it'll come up with an automatic anonymous link that you can share out. That's obviously a simple, easy one there for it. Emails, so it'll send out an email that's sent here. You can actually populate pre-populated responses. It'll through their software. I typically wouldn't do that, but you sure could right through theirs. A personal link, and so this would be something if you're going to generate specific links for specific email destinations, and it'll be shot to them. Social media, so if you want to make one that's just optimized right away, and I'm just going to tweet it out to all my followers because I want to find out how they're using professional learning networks on Twitter, whatever, I could do that. The offline app, I've actually not done this, but I know you can download the app. Actually, I do have the app on my iPad, but I've not actually tried this. It looks like we have to pay more money if we want to do this one, so I guess we won't talk about that any further. QR code, you already saw this earlier, but again, it'll automatically create one, and it'll just make that little binary, little link, automatic one, and it worked obviously nicely for all of us. So a bunch of those different things, and of course, you can also pay for respondents if you really need some answers. I'm not inclined to do that. But distributions are a variety of options. Obviously, the general and the anonymous link and the QR code are kind of the ones I've usually used, but a variety of options that are available to you. So here's what I find particularly interesting, and then Lando, I'll let you talk on reports, because I think you said you'd done some of them. I really haven't. But the data analysis, when it comes out, it pretty much automatically starts analyzing and recording responses individual, one by one. So ZAF, as you notice here, this is item by item, each person, the responses to all the items in the survey. And you can also, where's my filter for K? Reports. So under reports, it immediately pops out these different automatic outputs. And so as Lando mentioned a minute ago here, you can kind of manipulate some of these visual things. You can see most people agreed to respond, yay, but I flagged a few that are maybe interesting to show some different types of questions and what they look like. So question 4. So here's kind of just one of my early ones, just again, standard bar here, but it's quick aggregate data overall, kind of where they fell on this particular topic here. On 14, here I've got a different one. And so as you scroll down here again, every one of these automatically comes with a visual display, which is nice that they're right there, but then you can also change those, and I'll pick a few of these to show you some of those display options, because again, to me, that's one of these powerful tools. I don't have to go back and create my own smart art. You can choose these and capture them as little screenshots right away. So here's my 14. So here's one where I had them do some rankings, and it comes out in these different tables of kind of where they gather their information, or where they get their news from. But it spits out that information of the means as it's related to that in terms of this is a percentage question. But again, there's this option here if I want to add a visualization. So you can just click on that, and it gives you a variety of options. I'm not sure this will be a perfect one for that, but oh dear. This scrolling thing is a disaster. Yeah, the mouse, if I like that middle scroller, and it scrolls like the whole page down. So, but well, I'll show one that already has a visualization, so we won't manipulate it. But add visualization, you can choose to do those, and I'll show you one in a minute that has one differently. 16 is there, 19. Come on. I thought this was interesting because if you're familiar with the research on this, is an illustration to teachers in schools, and one of the topics was on their learning styles, if they learn best when they're taught in their preferred style, and evidence doesn't look good for that empirically, but overwhelmingly we agree with it. It's kind of interesting, which may be unsurprising. I think most of us, I believe that at some point, that's for sure. In fact, for a long point. Where was my other one here? Come on. So again, each of these things comes out with this different response. It's result that's itemized one by one. It aggregates constantly right away for that. You can take these and do them, but you can also manipulate how they show. And so here's one where they had to rank priorities, which I talked about earlier. I kind of like that when you think of a classroom. Which ones do you think are most important? And so I gave a variety of options that were available for people in that. And right below it, this is where some of these images came right away from. So I can have them spit out this kind of a radial diagram, which is just a series of means, basically, presentations. But here's the visual that currently is on there. This is these tabs I was talking about. So when this visualization comes up, if I just click on it, I have all these options to change what it looks like. So simple table you've kind of already seen, but if I want to change as a bar chart, there's that first one where it's going to kind of go down. And this is showing the mean again, so the smaller the bar, the higher they ranked it as a priority. So that's a little inverted thinking if you have to work there, but or a line chart might be a nice way to do that. Come on, you gonna scroll up for me? Let's see if we can get our scroll to show. There we go. And so we've got that again. It's showing the same thing. So it's again nothing too amazing, but a little quick looking at that, you can see which one they rate as most and least much of a priority for them. Do pie charts. It takes them by each individual item that they had and how much is rated as number one overall. So this is the number one priority. It was this red item. And if I click on this on my screen, so you know what? Am I in Chrome? I am in Chrome. Well, when you click on this, depending upon which internet software you're in, perhaps this one hasn't been updated in a while. The device isn't functioning quite as well as mine. Often it'll tell you what those red indicates. If I scroll to the bottom of this, I can too, but I also know if I scroll down far, it's going to screw up my page. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. But you can see what each of these colors are indicated. So right now, again, which ones do they rate number one most frequently? Which ones do they rate? Let's see if we can risk getting down a little further here. Number 10, overwhelmingly, they put this one. So again, down here, let's see if they have the code for me right there. So I can see here in this case there, most of these teachers think the lowest priority is developing a commitment to social justice amongst their students. Well, most. That's a fast cursory review, but 27% of them rated that as the least priority for them. So quick little snapshots that you can take, and again, you can change this to all sorts of different pictures. But again, I love that because as visual displays, it's important which one you're going to choose and what you want to represent, but all those available right away, and you just click by the click of a box, you can decide which one you want to look at. So that's kind of some of the overview from those, showing a couple of different examples of types of questions. what I thought I might do now is see, if, Lando, if you had any ones you want to pull up your surveys, maybe show some of yours that are different, I'll log out, let you do that. But then I thought it'd be great if you guys could take your survey and just quickly shoot out a, go to the distribution and give me a Qualtrics one. I'll fill one out so you can go and look at the data analysis. Lando and I'll go take it real fast. And at least you could kind of play with some of those things. Again, part of this is just a play option to see time to work about how would we make sense of this, or how would we use this data for our purposes.
If you had to purchase this on your own, is it a subscription amount? Or?
Yep, so our program purchased it last year. Dr. Vnazdal, I coerced him into it, and we used it. It was, what was it for the year? 7,000 for the year for a full program, or was it full? I forget the number. Okay. It was so I could find the exact number for you, but again, for as far we don't need. So we had it last year. We paid for it for our program. All of our faculty and all of our students all had access to it with that subscription. The university now has it, so we did not have to renew because it's now available to all tenure track faculty. It's something that's basically part of our contract, and maybe it should be because they're saying they need to do more research. So providing some tools to us would make some sense, and this is obviously one that could be leveraged that way. So at least for the foreseeable future, it's something that faculty can take on assumption it works, and grad students. Any grad student that we've got in our program, they don't have to pay for it. They just, because they're they're part of the university, they have it. I don't know about undergrads. Did you look at that or no?
They do that.
They do. Okay, so this is available university-wide, institutionally to anyone, and right now at no cost. For us. That's not true. The university's paying.
If you have your students building these, you can have them explore what display types best suit the question, and have them just pick one out and say, you know, is the line graph really what you think is the best display of your data? And they can say, well, yeah or no, so they can explore it that way too. For me, what I do is I do a lot of screenshotting because I want to present things to administrators very quickly. And so like that bottom bar there with the 3 colors, when you show that to people on a single page or in a PDF where you email it to them, they can see such immediate data, right? And then you want to scroll down, you can see some, you know, qualitative responses, but they may not want to see that, right? They may want to see just the big picture. So Qualtrics can, with the view features, like how you want to display your data, they've got that waiting for you.
So if I could everyone pull from their doing for a minute real quick, there was one thing I completely forgot to show towards the end here. So the data analysis, again, it spits out all these nice visual tables that you could use right away. They're all descriptive by nature, right? But a lot of times we want to run some inferential tests, things along those lines. And so under the data and analysis tab here, it gives an option for, first off, you can set up some things within here. So like this is just the data organized by individual response. So that's how Zaf could kind of grab his. But text, this will populate all the text responses right away. And so if I wanted to then go copy and paste those to Wordle, like I said, we don't need to because Lando could show you how to do the word cloud right in here. But if you want to capture all those to kind of get a picture of it, it takes a while to load all those because there's lots of writing. Crosstabs, I haven't done a whole lot. Have you done crosstabs at all or no? Okay, now you can set up some manipulations with it. You can set up some weighting scores. So all, you know, fun stuff. But what I wanted to highlight here was with the data, export and import right here. If you want to export your data, here's your options that come out right away. So CSV, you've got TSV, which actually I'm not familiar with, XML, SPSS because it's available. That's kind of my go-to thing. And as I was telling Zaf earlier, one of the things I found particularly helpful is that its exports have been very clean. And again, just kind of talking about when I've imported a lot of things from Excel to SPSS, and a lot of data is just screwed up and lost. It seems like it's somehow things are lost. I have not had almost anything lost with this. You get too much info on there. Hey, Bob, how are you? Good to see you. So anyway, it spits that out, and it's very clean. You just push download. That's it. And it will then give you your .sav file that then you can upload into SPSS and run your statistical analysis on. Another thing to think about is if you've got some of these questions like I shared with you, some of the items that have like the 2 columns, I forget what they call it. Remember that you had those column A and column B in SPSS, it'll create all these different fields right away for 2A, 2B, 2C, 2. So you have to, you'll take a minute to kind of look through and say which are these things, but it captures and transfers all the info over. So in the values or in the label section, it actually includes that in there, the whole question. So it's fairly easy, except that, again, it's too long, so you've got to manipulate the
You
words.
might want to create a code book
It would be a huge help.
before you export.
It could be a good plan. So, but anyway, the long story short, extremely easy. And again, that to me is one of the great tools for this, because then I get a pretty clean draft that doesn't require a great deal of manipulation, just usually a shrinking of some truncation of some words, and then saying Q21A, what is that real quick? And so getting myself back in the zone, like I said, if you had a code book, you'd be in business. So anyway, that was the one thing I did not show. And again, that was it. You just download it and it's down here. I've got my save files. So just drag and drop. If we had, it's not recognizing on this computer, so my gut instinct says this one doesn't have SPSS on it. But on my computer, it would read that, and I can open it up right away just by double-clicking it, or I could save it to my files. So again, very, very user-friendly for the tools that I use it for. And again, hope that you found some things interesting today, but I also wanted to then give the rest of the time for either Q&A or just kind of play time, unless you had something else you wanted to add, Lando.
Nope.
Okay. Any questions right away, or do you just want to play a little while, or are you burned out? Yeah, that's good. We'll stick around and see if we can't try to help answer anything.
Can you talk about how you've used this personally in your classes to support learning?
Yeah, sure. So, two ways. One, I've used them for a survey of kind of where students are in terms of what things they think they understand, so diagnostically. Okay. So I've used it as a diagnostic to kind of get some quick data of assessment literacy, and our program students come from very different backgrounds. Right. So I've used it that way just to kind of get some quick descriptive analysis, and that was about it. The bulk of what I've used it for is more research-wise to kind of get a picture of, so working with some districts, I've surveyed some things to say what kind of PD could I provide based upon what they need and what they think they need. Sometimes they're not the same thing. And so some of the data has been helpful for me to kind of figure out where the, Dr. V's favorite thing, the Johari window, what they don't know, and maybe kind of hone in on those categories. And that's nice to see through what they think they want and what they seems like they need based upon responses to those. And then this most recent survey is more kind of I'm trying to build kind of a regression prediction model of, depending upon how they perceive a particular construct, truth, whether it has implications on how their instructional practice looks in, anyway, long story short, so it's in process there. But mostly I've used it for research side. You've used it more in the classroom level, right? So
We've got an exercise we like to call the larger conversation. So basically, I'm teaching a curriculum class right now, so I'll put the word curriculum in the middle. And they come up to the whiteboards and they fill in anything they think's inside that big conversation. But you can also digitize that. And so you just show them the word cloud, and you find that the whole class, they think that testing and rigor and formative assessments is the biggest thing of curriculum. And then you can see in the fades in the background what maybe one person said, and that person said diversity. You're like, wait a minute, is diversity part of the curriculum conversation? Then you can start that conversation that way. And so we've almost digitized things we used to do on the whiteboard, so then you can kind of bounce back either way, you know. So I use it a lot for formative data, things like that, check-ins. And then I've never really built a test, though. I think that's something I learned today, that I could actually engineer a test with the logic features and you know, replace something on paper that way. So
some of the things that you kind of shared with, like the idea of the display logic and using kind of for feedback right away. I've typically used other software for that. So like, again, I think I had a presentation earlier with Nearpod. If I've got a PowerPoint already ready to go, what I usually do is I'll add in 5 to 10 different slides depending on what people need from that there, and based upon response to things, 40% of them got this one wrong, we need to go to my extra slide right now. But that's kind of on the spot, so I've used that more so because it takes maybe something I already have that I use in the class and improves it as opposed to being an add-on. Does it make sense? So those are some of the thoughts there, but I think program evaluation is a really good opportunities here. We're building a survey for graduates of the program to kind of solicit input for there, and that's in process, but a lot of options.
Yeah. I think Dr. K's used a lot of the ranking features, which is really nice. I've not done that before, but you know, how important was this experience in your program? And we start to see that, oh man, the required conference presentation was key. And we found that through choosing the rank order things. So that's some things we're playing with.